When a desperate, injured dog wanders into a bustling construction site, its silent plea for help awakens the hidden compassion of the workers. Witness how one heartbroken encounter transforms lives and brings everyone to tears. Write in the comments where you're watching this video from. The sun was just starting to peek over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the city. The construction site was already buzzing with activity. Heavy machinery rumbled as cranes lifted steel beams into place, and workers in bright orange vests moved briskly, each one focused on their tasks for the day. The air was filled with the sounds of hammering, drilling, and the occasional shout from a foreman directing his crew. It was a place of hard work and determination, where every person played a crucial role in building something new. In the midst of all this hustle and bustle, a small, scruffy dog wandered into the site. His fur was tangled and dirty, and his ribs showed through his thin coat. He moved slowly, one paw dragging slightly, making it clear that he was in pain. His eyes, big and brown, looked around nervously, scanning the busy scene for any sign of kindness or help. The dog's tail drooped low, and he seemed hesitant to approach anyone, as if he was afraid of being ignored or turned away. The morning sun highlighted the dust in the air, making everything look hazy and busy. The dog took a cautious step forward, his nose twitching as he sniffed the ground. He had no collar, no tags, and no one in sight seemed to notice him. The workers were too busy with their own jobs to pay much attention to the stray animal that had found its way onto the site. Some glanced his way briefly, but then returned to their work, assuming he would wander off soon. As the day began in earnest, the dog wandered further into the site, searching for a safe place to rest. He moved past piles of bricks and stacks of lumber, carefully avoiding the machinery that was now in full swing. The ground was uneven and covered with gravel, making each step a challenge for his injured legs. He paused frequently, panting heavily, trying to catch his breath and find a spot to sit. Nearby, a group of workers were taking their first break of the day, sipping coffee and chatting about their plans for the day. The dog approached them slowly, his eyes pleading for some kind of attention or help. One of the workers, a man named Mike, glanced at the dog and then shook his head, muttering something under his breath about having no time for animals. The other workers followed his lead, not wanting to get involved with something that wasn't part of their daily routine. The dog sat down a little away from the group, looking up at them with sad eyes. He whined softly, hoping someone would reach out to him, but the workers were too busy to notice his distress. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the temperature began to rise, making the dog even more uncomfortable. He tried to move closer to the workers, but his injured paw made it difficult, and he ended up limping back to his original spot. As the morning turned into midday, the construction site was in full swing. The workers were now fully engaged in their tasks, carrying materials, operating machinery, and communicating through the noise of the site. The dog watched them from a distance, feeling more alone than ever. He had no idea where he came from or how he ended up here, but one thing was clear: he needed help. The dog decided to explore a little more, hoping to find something that might offer him some comfort or shelter. He wandered towards the edge of the site, where some crates and boxes were stacked neatly. He sniffed around the area, searching for any scraps of food or a place to lie down. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him of how hungry he was. He looked around, hoping to find a kind soul who might share some of their lunch with him, but the site was too busy for that. In the shade of a large tarp, the dog finally found a spot to rest. It wasn't much, just a small area where he could lie down without being in the way of the workers. He curled up, trying to conserve his energy, but his mind was restless. He kept glancing towards the workers, watching them closely in the hope that someone would notice his plight and offer a helping hand. As the afternoon sun began to dip slightly, the temperature started to drop a little, bringing a sense of relief to the dog. He opened his eyes and looked around again, noticing that some workers were starting to take another break. This gave him a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would finally pay attention to him. The dog slowly made his way towards another group of workers who were gathered around a lunch table. He approached cautiously, his movements slow and deliberate, trying not to startle anyone. One of the workers, a woman named Sarah, noticed him first. She was the only one who seemed to see the desperation in the dog's eyes. She reached out her hand gently, allowing the dog to sniff her fingers. The dog's tail wagged slightly, a small sign of trust. Sarah looked around at her coworkers, who were busy eating their sandwiches and sipping their drinks. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. But the dog's pleading eyes convinced her to take action. She broke off a small piece of her sandwich and held it out to him. The dog eagerly took the food, munching on it hungrily. Sarah smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her heart that she hadn't felt in a long time. As Sarah shared her lunch with the dog, the other workers began to take notice. Some watched with curiosity, while others continued their meals, pretending not to see. But Sarah didn't mind. She knew that every little bit of kindness made a difference. She continued to offer the dog bits of her food, and slowly, the dog began to relax. He no longer looked as scared, and his tail wagged a little more confidently. The dog ate until he was full, then lay down beside Sarah, looking content for the first time since he arrived at the site. Sarah petted him gently, feeling a connection that went beyond words. She could tell that this dog had been through a lot and needed someone to care for him. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to the dog. As the afternoon wore on, more workers began to see the dog and respond to his presence. Some offered small pieces of their lunch, while others gave him water from their bottles. The dog's spirit lifted with each act of kindness, and the once lonely and scared animal began to feel a sense of belonging. The construction site, which had been a place of noise and chaos, now felt a little warmer and more welcoming. Sarah stayed by the dog's side for a while, making sure he was comfortable and had enough to eat and drink. She could see that he was starting to trust her, and that made her feel good inside. She knew that she couldn't leave the dog there alone, but she wasn't sure what else to do. She decided to talk to her coworkers and see if anyone was willing to help. "Hey guys," Sarah called out, her voice gentle but firm. "This poor dog is really hungry and hurt. Maybe we can help him out a bit." Mike, the same worker who had been indifferent earlier, looked up from his sandwich and sighed. "I don't know, Sarah. We're all busy, and it's not really our job to take care of stray animals." Sarah nodded, understanding his reluctance. "I know, but he looks like he needs us. Maybe we can at least give him some food and water. It might make a difference for him." One by one, the other workers began to agree. They saw how much the dog meant to Sarah and how much he needed their help. Slowly, the construction site transformed from a place of strict work routines into a community that cared for one of their own. They took turns feeding the dog and making sure if he had enough to drink. Some even offered to help take him to a vet if he was injured badly. As the day turned into evening, the workers started to wind down, finishing up their tasks and preparing to leave for the day. The dog, now fed and feeling safer, looked up at Sarah with gratitude in his eyes. He wagged his tail softly, a sign that he was no longer afraid. The workers gathered around, some of them sharing stories about their own pets or past experiences with animals. Sarah knew that she couldn't leave the dog there alone any longer. She decided to take him to a nearby animal shelter where he could receive proper care and hopefully find a new home. She gently picked him up, feeling his weight in her arms, and walked towards the exit of the construction site. The other workers followed, offering to help carry him if needed. As they walked out together, the dog looked back at the site one last time. He saw the workers waving goodbye, some with tears in their eyes, moved by the kindness they had shown him. It was a moment of connection that none of them would forget. The dog felt a sense of relief and hope, knowing that he was no longer alone and that people cared about his well-being. The journey to the animal shelter was calm and quiet. The dog rested in Sarah's arms, feeling safe and protected. He knew that his life was about to change for the better, thanks to the compassion of strangers who had become his temporary family. The sun set behind the buildings, casting a beautiful orange glow across the sky as they approached the shelter. At the shelter, the staff welcomed them warmly. They took the dog inside, where he was given a thorough checkup and received the care he needed. Sarah watched as the dog was gently treated, feeling happy that he was finally getting the help he deserved. She knew that she had made a difference in his life, and that thought filled her heart with joy. As the night settled in, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment. She had helped a lonely, injured dog find hope and kindness in a place where he least expected it. The construction site had been a place of hard work and noise, but it had also become a place of compassion and community, all because of one brave dog who had wandered in looking for help. The next morning, the construction site was still busy, but there was a different feeling in the air. The workers carried on with their tasks, but there was a sense of camaraderie and kindness that wasn't there before. They remembered the dog and the impact he had on their day, and it made them more aware of the world around them. They knew that sometimes, even in the busiest places, a little bit of kindness could make a big difference. Sarah continued to visit the animal shelter, hoping to hear good news about the dog she had helped. She felt a strong bond with him, knowing that she had been the one to reach out and offer a helping hand when he needed it most. The dog story had brought the workers closer together, showing them the power of compassion and the importance of helping those in need, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. The dog, now safe and cared for, began to heal both physically and emotionally. He was given a comfortable bed, plenty of food, and the medical attention he needed to recover from his injuries. The staff at the shelter took great care of him, and soon he was ready to find a new home where he would be loved and cherished. His time at the construction site had shown him that there were kind people in the world who cared about him, and that gave him the strength to move forward. One day, a family came to the shelter looking for a new pet. They saw the dog and immediately felt a connection. His gentle eyes and calm demeanor spoke to them, and they knew he was the one they wanted to bring home. The family adopted him, giving him a second chance at a happy life filled with love and care. The dog finally found the home he had been searching for, a place where he would never have to feel lonely or scared again. Back at the construction site, the workers continued their jobs with a newfound sense of purpose. They remembered the dog's arrival and the lessons they had learned about kindness and empathy. They took care to look out for each other and for any animals that might wander into their midst, knowing that a little bit of compassion could go a long way. Sarah felt proud of what she had done, knowing that she had made a real difference in someone's life. She continued to spread kindness wherever she went, inspired by the bond she had formed with the dog at the construction site. The memory of that scruffy, homeless dog remained with her, a reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of helping those in need. The dog story became a part of the construction site's history, a tale of how one small animal had brought out the best in everyone. It was a story that was told and retold, inspiring new workers to carry forward the spirit of kindness and compassion. The site remained a place of hard work and dedication, but it was also a place where hearts were opened and lives were touched by the simple act of helping a lonely, injured dog in need. And so, the lonely arrival of a homeless dog at a bustling construction site became a story of hope, compassion, and the incredible impact that one act of kindness can have on an entire community. The workers learned that no matter how busy life gets, there is always time to help someone in need, and that sometimes, the smallest gestures can lead to the biggest changes. As the days turned into weeks and months, the construction site continued to grow and develop, much like the bonds that had been formed there. The story of the dog remained a cherished memory, a symbol of the day when everyone came together to help a helpless animal in need. It was a reminder that even in the busiest and toughest of places, there is always room for kindness and compassion. The dog's journey from a lonely, injured animal to a beloved family member was a testament to the power of empathy and the difference one person can make. Sarah's decision to reach out and help the dog had set off a chain reaction of kindness that touched everyone involved. It showed that no matter how small or insignificant something may seem, it can have a profound impact on others. In the end, the construction site wasn't just a place where buildings were made, it was a place where lives were changed, hearts were touched, and a community was built on the foundation of compassion and care. The story of the homeless dog that begged for help at the construction site was a beautiful example of how even the most unexpected encounters can lead to meaningful connections and lasting change. And so, the sun continued to rise and set over the construction site, each day bringing new challenges and opportunities. But the memory of that lonely dog remained, a beacon of hope and a reminder of the incredible things that can happen when people come together to help those in need. It was a story that would inspire everyone who worked there, encouraging them to always keep their hearts open and to never underestimate the power of a simple act of kindness. The sun rose higher in the sky, and the construction site buzzed with activity. Workers moved about, hammering nails, lifting beams, and operating heavy machinery. The sound of drills and saws filled the air, mixing with the chatter and laughter of the crew. Amidst all this noise and motion, the scruffy dog made its way through the site again, its paws tired and muddy from walking all night. The dog looked around, eyes full of hope, searching for someone to notice it. As the morning progressed, the dog tried different ways to get attention. It followed a group of workers who were carrying materials to the top of a scaffold, hoping someone would stop and give it some food. The workers, focused on their tasks, didn't see the dog's sad eyes or notice its gentle nudges. The dog's tail wagged weakly, but no one turned to pet it or offer a kind word. Lunchtime arrived, and the workers gathered in the break area to eat their sandwiches and drink their water. The dog quietly approached the edge of the crowd, sitting patiently and looking up with big, pleading eyes. It barked softly, hoping someone would share a piece of their lunch. Most of the workers were too busy chatting or eating to pay attention. A few glanced at the dog but quickly looked away, unsure of what to do. The dog's stomach growled loudly, reminding everyone of its hunger, but still, no one gave in. During the afternoon, the sun shone brightly, making the construction site feel even hotter. The dog sought shade under a large metal beam, panting heavily to stay cool. It watched as new workers arrived, bringing fresh energy to the site. The dog wagged its tail again, hoping for some recognition, but the new faces were just as busy and preoccupied as the others. One worker, Jake, noticed the dog from a distance but shook his head and went back to his tasks, thinking it was just a stray animal passing by. As the day went on, the dog's limp became more noticeable. Each step seemed harder than the last, and its once hopeful eyes now showed signs of pain and exhaustion. It tried to rest for a moment, lying down in the corner of the site, but the noises and movements made it hard to find peace. The dog's fur was tangled and dirty, and its ribs poked through its thin coat. Despite its tough exterior, the dog was clearly in need of help. In the late afternoon, the sky began to change color, turning a soft orange as the sun started to set. The construction workers began to slow down, taking a break after a long day. The dog took this opportunity to approach a group of workers who were taking their lunch outside. It sat down, tail still wagging, eyes full of hope. One of the workers, Tom, reached into his bag for a snack and paused when he saw the dog. He looked around at his friends, who were all busy talking and laughing, not paying attention to the dog. Tom hesitated for a moment before breaking a piece of his sandwich and tossing it toward the dog. The dog eagerly grabbed the food, its tail wagging furiously. The workers watched as the dog ate, some with smiles on their faces, others with a hint of sympathy in their eyes. It was a small act of kindness, but it made a difference. The dog's energy seemed to lift slightly, and it looked up at Tom with gratitude. Encouraged by Tom's gesture, the dog continued to seek small acts of kindness throughout the day. It followed a worker named Sarah as she walked to her vehicle, hoping for a friendly pat or a kind word. Sarah, however, was preoccupied with a phone call, barely noticing the dog by her side. The dog's tail drooped a little, but it remained hopeful, waiting patiently for any sign of attention. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the construction site, the dog found a quiet spot near the entrance. It watched as workers packed up their tools and prepared to leave for the day. The site started to empty, and the sounds of construction faded away, replaced by the softer noises of the evening. The dog's eyes followed each worker as they left, hoping that one of them might remember to check on it before heading home. Night started to fall, and the temperature dropped. The dog shivered, trying to stay warm despite its already frail condition. It curled up in a corner, still hoping that someone would come back and help. The construction site, now mostly quiet, seemed even more vast and lonely. The dog's breathing was slow and steady, but its eyes remained wide open, reflecting the fading light and the uncertainty of what the next day would bring. Throughout the day, small interactions began to change how some of the workers felt about the dog. Emma, one of the more compassionate workers, noticed the dog's struggles early on. She saw it limping as it entered the site and tried to ignore it, thinking it would leave on its own. But as the day went by, Emma couldn't shake the image of the dog's sad eyes and tired body. She wondered where the dog had come from and why it was so desperate for help. Emma watched as the dog tried to get attention, sitting near lunch areas and following workers around. She saw the way the dog looked at the workers, hoping for kindness, and it made her heart ache. Emma decided to keep an eye on the dog, hoping that someone else would step up and offer assistance. She noticed the small moments when workers like Tom gave a little of their lunch, or when Sarah almost noticed the dog but got distracted by her phone. As the day wore on, Emma felt a growing sense of responsibility. She couldn't just leave the dog there, vulnerable and alone. She started thinking about ways to help, wondering if there was a nearby shelter or someone she could call for assistance. The thought of the dog spending another night on the cold, hard ground made her determined to do something more substantial. Meanwhile, other workers began to notice the dog's presence more clearly. Jake, who had initially ignored the dog, saw it sitting quietly in the shade, looking more tired than before. He felt a pang of guilt for not helping sooner. He approached Emma during a break, sharing his own observations and expressing concern for the dog's well-being. Together, they decided it was time to take more definitive action. As the day transitioned into evening, Emma and Jake spoke to their supervisor, Mr. Davis, about the dog. They explained how the dog had been there all day, looking for help and clearly in need. Mr. Davis listened carefully, his stern expression softening as he realized the seriousness of the situation. He agreed that they couldn't just leave the dog there and instructed the workers to help in any way they could. With Mr. Davis's approval, the workers began to come together to assist the dog. One worker fetched a blanket from the break room, another brought over some extra food and water, and someone called a local animal rescue organization. The dog, sensing the change in atmosphere, perked up slightly, its eyes shining with hope once more. As the workers gathered around, Emma knelt down beside the dog, gently stroking its fur. The dog leaned into her touch, visibly relaxing for the first time that day. Emma spoke softly, reassuring the dog that everything would be okay. The other workers joined in, offering words of comfort and making sure the dog was safe and warm. The dog's transformation was evident. From a scared, hungry, and tired animal, it began to show signs of trust and relief. It wagged its tail more energetically, and its eyes sparkled with gratitude. The workers, seeing the positive change, felt a sense of fulfillment and unity. They realized that by coming together to help the dog, they were also strengthening their own bonds as a team. As the evening progressed, the workers made arrangements to ensure the dog would be cared for. They decided to take turns feeding and watching over it until the animal rescue team arrived. Emma and Jake coordinated the efforts, making sure the dog had everything it needed. The dog seemed to understand that help was finally on the way, and it settled down comfortably, feeling safe and loved. The construction site, once a place of constant noise and activity, now held a new kind of calm. The workers took a moment to appreciate the quiet companionship of the dog, reflecting on how a small act of kindness had brought them all closer together. They shared stories and laughs, finding joy in the simple presence of the dog and the shared experience of helping another living being. As night fully set in, the rescue team arrived at the construction site. They were greeted warmly by the workers, who explained the dog's situation and provided all the information they had gathered. The rescue team quickly took over, ensuring the dog was healthy and ready for transportation to a safe place. The workers watched as the dog was gently loaded into a van, feeling a mix of sadness and happiness knowing they had made a difference. Emma lingered for a moment, giving the dog one last pat before it was taken away. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that her decision to help had not only saved the dog but had also brought out the best in everyone at the site. The other workers nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting the emotional journey they had all experienced together. As the rescue van drove away, the construction site returned to its usual rhythm, but with a newfound sense of camaraderie and empathy among the workers. They went back to their tasks with lighter hearts, knowing that they had done something truly meaningful. The memory of the dog's silent plea and the way they had come together to help stayed with them, reminding them of the importance of kindness and looking out for one another. The day had started with a lonely, hungry dog seeking help, but it ended with a community united by compassion. The workers realized that even in the busiest and toughest environments, there was always room for kindness and empathy. They felt grateful for the opportunity to help the dog and proud of the way they had responded to its needs. As night settled in, the workers left the site feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment. They knew that their actions had made a difference, not just for the dog, but for themselves as well. The construction site, once just a place of work, had become a place where compassion and humanity shone through, leaving a lasting impact on everyone who had been there that day. The dog's journey had brought out the best in the workers, showing them that even in the toughest circumstances, kindness and empathy could prevail. It was a lesson they would carry with them, inspiring them to continue helping others in need, whether it was a stray animal or a fellow human being. The day had been long and challenging, but it had also been filled with moments of genuine connection and heartfelt emotion. As the workers went home that evening, they shared stories of the day's events with their families and friends, spreading the message of compassion and teamwork. They talked about how a simple act of kindness had brought them all closer together and how it had changed their perspective on their work environment. The story of the homeless dog at the construction site became a cherished memory, a reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of helping those in need. In the days that followed, the workers continued to support each other and the community in new ways. They organized volunteer days to help local shelters, donated supplies to those in need, and made a conscious effort to look out for one another on and off the job site. The experience with the dog had sparked a positive change, fostering a culture of kindness and mutual support among the team. Emma and Jake, who had taken the lead in helping the dog, found themselves more connected and respected by their peers. They continued to advocate for animals in need, working with the rescue organization to ensure that other stray animals received the care and attention they deserved. Their actions inspired others to take similar steps, creating a ripple effect of kindness that extended beyond the construction site. The construction site itself became known not just for its buildings, but for the compassionate workers who had come together to help a homeless dog in need. Visitors and new workers were greeted with stories of the day the dog had changed everything, and the legacy of that day lived on in the way the team approached their work and their interactions with others. The dog, now safely in a loving home, never forgot the kindness it had received at the construction site. It thrived in its new environment, surrounded by love and care, always remembering the day when strangers had become friends. The workers often received updates and photos from the rescue team, showing the dog happily playing and enjoying its new life, a testament to the power of compassion and the difference one small act can make. As time passed, the memory of the dog's struggle and the workers' response became a source of pride and inspiration for everyone involved. It reminded them that even in the busiest and most challenging places, there was always room for kindness and empathy. The story of the homeless dog at the construction site was more than just a tale of rescue. It was a lesson in humanity, showing that no one is too busy or too tough to show compassion to those in need. The workers continued to carry the lessons they had learned into their daily lives, both on and off the job site. They became more attentive to the needs of others, whether it was a co-worker going through a tough time or a stray animal in need of help. The bond they had formed through their shared experience with the dog strengthened their teamwork and made their work environment a more supportive and positive place. In the end, Act 2 of the story highlighted the unseen struggles of the homeless dog and the gradual awakening of compassion among the workers. It showed how persistent effort and small acts of kindness can break through indifference and bring out the best in people. The emotional journey of the dog and the workers created a deep connection, leaving everyone moved and inspired by the power of empathy and the importance of helping those in need. As the sun reached its peak, the construction site buzzed with energy. Machines hummed, and workers moved swiftly, each focused on their tasks. Among the heavy equipment and towering structures, the scruffy dog, now visibly tired and hungry, continued to wander the site. Its once bright eyes dulled with exhaustion, and its steps became slower, struggling to keep up. Jake, a young worker, noticed the dog again as he carried a large bundle of pipes. He glanced at it, then shook his head and went back to his work, not wanting to be distracted. The dog watched him, its tail wagging weakly, hoping for a kind gesture. It tried to bark softly, but its voice was barely a whisper, lost amidst the noise of the construction. Throughout the morning, the dog had tried to stay close, seeking any sign of kindness. It followed workers from one area to another, hoping someone would stop and help. Emma, a kind-hearted worker, had seen the dog too, but she was busy laying bricks and didn't have time to spare. She glanced at the dog occasionally, feeling a pang of sympathy but unsure of what to do. As lunchtime approached, the workers gathered for a break. They sat together, sharing sandwiches and stories, the sun shining brightly above. The dog approached the lunch area, eyes full of hope. It sat down at the edge, looking up at the workers, its stomach growling. Emma noticed the dog again, its hopeful eyes meeting hers. She reached into her lunch bag and pulled out a small sandwich, breaking it into pieces. "Here you go, little guy," Emma said softly, tossing a piece of bread towards the dog. The dog eagerly grabbed the food, wagging its tail slightly. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. She decided to share more, tearing off small bits of her sandwich and offering them to the dog. The other workers watched, some smiling at Emma's kindness, others too focused on their own meals to pay attention. After lunch, the workers returned to their tasks. The dog, now a bit more energized, tried to keep up, but its limp worsened. It found a shady spot under some scaffolding, trying to rest. The sun was still strong, and the dog shivered, its fur matted and dirty. Sweat dripped down its face, and it looked around, searching for help. As the afternoon wore on, the dog's condition continued to decline. It struggled to stand, every movement causing it pain. Emma couldn't shake the feeling of worry. She watched as the dog staggered towards the edge of the construction site, near the busy road. Her heart raced as she saw the dog wobble and then collapse onto the ground, unable to move. Emma rushed over, her footsteps quick on the gravel. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside the dog. The dog looked up at her, eyes filled with fear and pain. It whimpered softly, its body trembling. Emma gently stroked its back, trying to comfort it. "Don't worry, I'll help you," Emma whispered, her voice filled with concern. She looked around, hoping to find someone who could assist. One of the workers, Tom, approached, noticing Emma's distress. "What's wrong?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "The dog, it's hurt," Emma replied, her eyes never leaving the animal. "I think it needs help." Tom examined the dog, noticing the swelling on its leg and the cuts on its paw. "We need to get it to a vet," he said, looking around the busy site. "But it's almost the end of the day, and getting help won't be easy." Emma nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We have to try. It can't stay here like this." They decided to call over their colleagues, explaining the situation. Slowly, one by one, workers began to gather around, their expressions shifting from indifference to concern. Some offered water from their lunch bags, while others fetched blankets to keep the dog warm. Jake, who had noticed the dog's struggles earlier, brought over a first aid kit. Together, they carefully cleaned the dog's wounds, applying bandages to stop the bleeding. The dog whimpered but seemed to relax under their gentle care. Emma spoke soothing words, trying to calm both the dog and the worried workers. As the workers worked together, the atmosphere at the site began to change. Conversations slowed, and the noise of construction seemed to fade as everyone focused on helping the injured animal. Emma called her friend, Lily, who worked nearby at a veterinary clinic. "Lily, we need help," Emma said urgently when Lily answered. "There's a dog at the construction site. It's hurt badly. Can you come quickly?" "I'll be there as soon as I can," Lily replied. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for Lily to arrive. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the site. The dog, now lying on the makeshift bed of blankets, looked up at Emma with gratitude in its eyes. Emma felt a lump in her throat, tears welling up as she realized how much this dog needed them. Finally, Lily arrived, carrying a bag of medical supplies. She knelt beside the dog, assessing its injuries with a professional eye. "We need to get it stabilized before we can move it," she explained, her voice gentle. "Emma, can you help me carry it?" Together, Emma and Lily carefully lifted the dog, supporting its weight as they made their way to a nearby trailer where they could secure it safely. The other workers assisted, creating a clear path through the busy site. Jake held the dog's front paw steady, while Tom gently spoke to keep it calm. As they worked, the workers began to share stories about their own pets and experiences, bonding over their shared desire to help the injured animal. The sense of community grew stronger, united by their compassion for the dog. Emma couldn't help but smile, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment as they all came together to save a life. Once the dog was safely inside the trailer, Lily began her work, carefully cleaning the wounds and administering pain relief. "It's going to be okay," she assured, her hands moving with practiced ease. "We'll take good care of it." The workers watched with hope, their earlier fatigue replaced by a sense of purpose. Emma sat beside the trailer, stroking the dog's head gently. "You're safe now," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The dog looked up at her, its eyes filled with trust and relief. As the night settled in, the construction site grew quiet. The workers packed up their tools, their minds still on the dog they had come together to help. Emma stayed by the trailer, ensuring the dog was comfortable and safe until Lily finished her work. When everything was done, Lily stood up, wiping her hands. "It's stable now. We'll transport it to the clinic first thing in the morning," she said, giving Emma a reassuring smile. Emma nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and relief. "Thank you, everyone. You all were amazing." The workers nodded back, a silent acknowledgement of the day's unexpected turn. As they left the site, the dog watched them go, its eyes reflecting the bond that had formed in such a short time. The once lonely and scared animal now felt a sense of belonging, knowing that people cared enough to help. That night, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the dog. She imagined it safe and warm at the clinic, free from pain and fear. She hoped that soon, the dog would find a loving home, surrounded by kindness and care. The next morning, the workers returned to the site, their spirits lifted by the previous day's events. Emma met Lily at the entrance, ready to take the dog to the clinic. As they loaded the trailer, Emma took one last look at the construction site, feeling a sense of closure and hope. "Goodbye, little guy," she whispered, reaching into the trailer to gently pat the dog's head. The dog looked up, offering a final wag of its tail before closing its eyes, resting peacefully. As the trailer drove away, the workers stood together, watching the sunrise over the city. They felt a deeper connection to each other and to the world around them, reminded of the importance of compassion and kindness. The day's events had changed them, leaving a lasting impression that would stay with them forever. Emma felt a warmth in her heart as she walked away from the site, knowing that they had made a difference. She hoped that the story of the homeless dog would inspire others to look beyond their busy lives and offer a helping hand to those in need. Whether human or animal. The construction site, once a place of noise and haste, now held a memory of unity and empathy. The workers went about their tasks with a newfound sense of purpose, carrying the lessons of the day with them. They had witnessed the power of kindness, how a single act could bring people together and change lives. Days turned into weeks, and Emma kept in touch with Lily, eager to hear about the dog's progress. One afternoon, Lily called with good news. "The dog is recovering well," she said. "We've found a loving family who wants to adopt him. He's going to have a happy home." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with joy. "That's wonderful news. I'm so happy for him." When the family came to the construction site to pick up the dog, the workers gathered to say goodbye. Emma felt a sense of pride as she watched the dog leave, knowing that their efforts had saved a life. The family thanked everyone, their eyes misty with gratitude. As the dog walked away with its new family, the workers felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had come together in a moment of need, showing that even in the busiest of places, compassion could shine through. The memory of the dog would remain with them, a reminder of the good they could do when they opened their hearts to those in need. Emma looked around at her colleagues, seeing them in a new light. They were more than just workers, they were a community, capable of great kindness and strength. She felt grateful to be part of such a team, one that could come together to make a difference. The construction site continued to grow and evolve, buildings rising tall against the skyline. But beneath the surface, the workers carried the story of the homeless dog with them, a tale of hope and humanity that would inspire them for years to come. One evening, as Emma was leaving the site, she saw a poster on the bulletin board. It was a photo of the dog, now happy and healthy in its new home, with a caption thanking the workers for their help. Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek, touched by the acknowledgement of their efforts. She realized that sometimes, amidst the chaos and challenges of daily life, small acts of kindness could create ripples of change. The story of the homeless dog had brought them closer, teaching them the value of empathy and the impact of their actions. As Emma walked home, she thought about the day's events and the lessons learned. She knew that life would continue to present its own set of challenges, but she felt more prepared to face them with a compassionate heart. The memory of the dog would serve as a beacon, guiding her and her colleagues to always look out for those in need. The construction site, now quiet under the night sky, stood as a testament to the day's events. The workers had built more than just buildings, they had built a stronger, more caring community. And as the lights dimmed and the city settled into the night, the spirit of kindness lingered, a lasting legacy of the day a homeless dog brought everyone to tears. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, the construction site buzzed with the sounds of workers finishing their day. The heavy machinery slowed down, and the once loud and busy site started to calm. Emma walked through the site, her boots crunching on the gravel as she made her way to the office to grab her things for the day. She glanced around, noticing the tired faces of her co-workers, each one ready to head home after a long day. But something caught Emma's eye. Near the edge of the site, where the tall cranes reached toward the sky, she saw the scruffy dog again. The dog was lying on the ground, its side aching from the day's walk. It looked even more tired and hungry than before. Emma felt a pang in her heart. She had seen the dog earlier, but she had hoped it would find shelter or help. Seeing it now, she knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. Emma approached the dog slowly, trying not to scare it. The dog looked up at her with big, sad eyes, its tail wagging weakly. Emma knelt down beside it, gently stroking its fur. "Hey there, little guy," she whispered. "Are you okay?" The dog let out a soft whimper, its eyes glistening with pain. Emma could see that it was injured, with a limp and a sore paw. She looked around, hoping to find someone who could help, but most of the workers were busy packing up their tools or talking with their families. It seemed like no one else had noticed the dog's struggle. Determined to help, Emma stood up and walked back to the office. She called out to her coworkers, "Hey, everyone. Can you come here for a minute?" Curious, a few workers gathered around. Emma explained the situation, showing them the dog that was now lying on the ground, looking so helpless. "This poor dog is hurt, and it needs our help," she said. "We can't just leave it here." One of the workers, Jake, frowned. "But we're about to leave. What can we do for a dog?" Emma looked at Jake and then back at the dog. "We can give it some water and food, and maybe we can find a way to get it to a vet. It needs our help." Jake sighed but nodded. "All right, let's see what we can do." The workers began to gather anything they could find to help the dog. One brought a bottle of water, another found some leftover lunch, and Emma fetched a soft blanket from her truck. They carefully approached the dog, speaking in calm and gentle tones to keep it from getting scared. Emma knelt beside the dog again, placing the blanket under its body. "Here, little one. Drink some water," she said softly, offering the bottle. The dog slowly took the water, sipping it gratefully. Emma could see the relief in its eyes, and her heart ached to see it suffering. One of the workers, Mike, looked around and spotted a first aid kit in the office. "I think we have some bandages and antiseptic here," he said. "Let me get them." He hurried back to the office and returned with the first aid supplies. Carefully, they cleaned the dog's wound and wrapped its paw. The dog whimpered again, but it seemed more comfortable now. Emma looked at her coworkers, seeing the concern in their faces. "We need to take this dog to a vet," Emma said. "There must be a clinic nearby that can help." Jake nodded. "I know a place that's open late. I'll call them and see if they can take the dog." As Jake made the call, the other workers continued to comfort the dog, speaking to it in soothing voices. The sun was almost gone, and the sky was turning dark. Emma felt a sense of urgency. The dog needed help, and fast. After a few minutes, Jake returned to the group. "They can take the dog right now. We need to bring it to their location. It's about 10 minutes away." Emma didn't hesitate. "Let's go," she said, leading the way. The workers carefully lifted the dog, wrapping it gently in the blanket to keep it warm. They loaded the dog into Jake's truck, making sure it was secure and comfortable. As they drove to the veterinary clinic, the workers stayed quiet, each lost in their own thoughts about the dog and its plight. Emma glanced in the rearview mirror, watching the dog lie quietly, its breathing steady. She could feel the weight of responsibility, knowing that their actions could make a big difference in the dog's life. When they arrived at the clinic, the vet greeted them with concern. "What happened?" she asked, taking the dog from the workers. Emma explained the situation, detailing the dog's injuries and how they had found it at the construction site. The vet nodded, quickly assessing the dog's condition. "We'll take good care of him," she assured them. "He was lucky you found him when you did." As the vet worked on the dog, Emma and the other workers stood by, watching with worry. The vet came out a few minutes later, a gentle smile on her face. "He's going to be okay. He was dehydrated and had a small wound, but with some rest and care, he'll recover." Relief washed over Emma and her coworkers. They had done something good, something that mattered. The vet patted the dog's head gently. "He's a sweet dog. If you want, we can help you find a permanent home for him." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "Thank you so much. We just wanted to help him." The workers smiled, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. They had turned a busy, indifferent construction site into a place of compassion and kindness, all because of one little dog's plea for help. As they left the clinic, Emma glanced back at the building, thinking about how their day had changed. The workers chatted softly among themselves, sharing stories about the dog and discussing how they could make sure no other animal would suffer alone like this again. Back at the construction site the next morning, the atmosphere was different. The workers greeted each other with smiles, a sense of camaraderie stronger than before. They talked about the dog and how they had come together to help. Some even brought in extra food and water to leave out for any animals that might wander by. Emma felt a warm feeling inside, knowing that they had made a difference. She thought about the dog, hoping it was safe and getting the care it needed. The memory of the dog's pleading eyes stayed with her, a reminder of the importance of kindness and looking out for those who couldn't help themselves. Days turned into weeks, and the workers continued to check on the dog whenever they saw it near the site. They named him Lucky, believing that he had found his luck by being rescued by such caring people. Lucky began to heal, his limp fading as he regained his strength. The workers watched with joy as he started to play more, his tail wagging energetically whenever someone approached. One afternoon, a family came to the clinic looking for Lucky. They had seen the story online and were eager to adopt him. The vet explained that Lucky had been found at a construction site and had been receiving care. Emma and the workers were invited to meet the family and say goodbye to Lucky. When the family arrived, they were greeted with warm smiles from the workers. They knelt down to pet Lucky, who greeted them happily, his eyes bright and full of life. The parents shared how much they had wanted a dog and how Lucky had touched their hearts with his story. Emma felt a mix of happiness and sadness as she handed Lucky over to the family. "He's going to a loving home now," she said softly. We're so glad he found you." The family thanked the workers for saving Lucky and promised to take good care of him. As they left with Lucky, Emma watched them go, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. The workers stood together, sharing a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing they had made a real difference in Lucky's life. Back at the construction site, the workers continued their tasks with a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that their actions had shown the true meaning of teamwork and compassion. Whenever someone saw Lucky playing in his new home, they felt a sense of pride, knowing they had helped bring happiness to both the dog and the family that adopted him. Emma often thought about Lucky and the journey they had been on together. She felt grateful for the opportunities to help and inspired by the kindness her coworkers had shown. The experience had brought them closer, creating bonds that went beyond their work on the construction site. One evening, as Emma was leaving the site, she saw Lucky playing happily in his backyard. The dog looked back at her, tail wagging, as if to say thank you. Emma smiled, feeling a warm glow in her heart. She knew that this was just the beginning of many more acts of kindness that would follow, inspired by the story of a lonely dog who had found his way to a place where he was loved and cared for. The story of Lucky became a favorite tale among the workers, a reminder of the power of empathy and the importance of helping those in need. They shared their story with friends and family, spreading the message that even small acts of kindness can have a big impact. As the days turned into months, the construction site became known not just for its buildings, but also for the kindness and compassion of its workers. They continued to look out for animals and people alike, always ready to lend a hand when someone was in need. The legacy of Lucky lived on, a testament to the power of a single act of kindness to change lives and bring people together. Emma felt proud to be part of such a caring community. She knew that their actions had made the world a little bit better, one kind gesture at a time. And every time she saw a dog wagging its tail or a coworker lending a hand, she was reminded of the day they rescued Lucky and how it had brought tears to their eyes, tears of happiness and gratitude for the chance to help someone in need. The construction site continued to thrive, not just because of the buildings they were creating, but because of the hearts they were touching along the way. And Lucky, the dog who had begged for help, became a symbol of hope and kindness, inspiring everyone around him to be better and do better for those who needed it most. In the end, it wasn't just about building structures, but about building a community where everyone looked out for each other, just like they did for Lucky. And as the sun set each day, casting a golden glow over the site, Emma and her coworkers felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that they had made a difference and that their actions had left everyone in tears, not of sadness, but of joy and the warmth that comes from helping a friend in need. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the city, Emma and her team carefully lifted the tired dog into the back of their truck. The dog, now calmer after receiving water and food, looked up at them with grateful eyes. Emma gently patted its head, whispering soothing words. The workers gathered around, some wiping away tears, moved by the sight of the once lonely and scared dog finding hope. They drove to the nearby veterinary clinic, the dog resting peacefully between them. The ride was quiet, filled with a sense of accomplishment and relief. When they arrived, the vet greeted them with a warm smile. Emma explained how they found the dog at the construction site and how they wanted to help. Inside the clinic, the vet carefully examined the dog, checking for any injuries and making sure it was healthy. Emma watched closely, feeling hopeful. The vet assured them that the dog would be okay with some rest and care. Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders, knowing they had done the right thing. Over the next few days, Emma and her team took turns visiting the dog at the clinic. They watched as it slowly regained strength, its fur becoming shiny and clean. The dog wagged its tail whenever someone came in, showing signs of trust and happiness. Emma began to think about finding a forever home for the dog, someone who would love and care for it as much as they had. One afternoon, a kind family came to the clinic looking to adopt a pet. They saw the dog and immediately felt a connection. The little girl knelt down and gently stroked the dog's fur, whispering kind words. The parents smiled, seeing how happy their daughter was with the dog. Emma knew this was the perfect match. After some paperwork and happy tears, the family took the dog home. Emma and her team felt a sense of joy, knowing the dog would finally have a loving place to stay. They shared pictures of the dog with the workers at the construction site, who were thrilled to hear the good news. A few weeks later, Emma received a photo from the new family. It showed the dog playing in a big backyard, chasing a ball and laughing happily. Next to the photo was a picture of the construction site workers, all smiling and holding signs of thanks. Emma felt her heart swell with happiness, seeing how their act of kindness had changed the dog's life forever. One sunny morning, Emma decided to visit the construction site again. As she walked through, she saw the workers going about their tasks, but now there was a different feeling in the air. They talked about the dog, sharing stories of how it had brought them closer together. The site felt warmer, more connected, all because of one brave dog that had wandered in seeking help. Emma smiled, knowing that sometimes, even the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest differences. She looked up at the sky, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. The dog's journey had touched their hearts and brought a community closer, showing that everyone could make a difference when they opened their hearts. As the day ended, the workers gathered for a short break. They talked and laughed, sharing memories of the dog and how it had inspired them to care for others. Emma stood with them, feeling grateful for their teamwork and compassion. The construction site, once a place of noise and busy work, now held a story of love and hope that would stay with them forever. That evening, Emma received a call from the new family. They wanted to invite her to visit and see how the dog was doing. Excited, Emma agreed, looking forward to seeing the happy reunion. The next weekend, she went to the family's home, bringing a small gift for the dog as a token of their appreciation. When she arrived, the family welcomed her warmly. The dog ran up to her, tail wagging furiously, jumping into her arms with joy. The little girl beamed, introducing Emma to her parents and showing her around the backyard where the dog played every day. Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their efforts had led to such a beautiful ending. They sat together in the garden, sharing stories and laughter. Emma listened as the family talked about how the dog had become a beloved member of their household, bringing endless joy and love. She shared her own experiences at the construction site, recounting the day they found the dog and how it had changed their lives. As the sun set, painting the sky with vibrant colors, Emma realized that this journey was more than just rescuing a dog. It was about the connections they had made, the empathy they had shown, and the love that had grown among the workers and the community. She knew that this story would stay with her forever, a reminder of the power of kindness and the importance of helping those in need. Before leaving, Emma took one last look at the happy family and the joyful dog. She felt a tear of happiness slip down her cheek, touched by the incredible transformation they had witnessed. The dog had gone from being a lonely wanderer to finding a loving home, and in the process, it had brought people together and inspired them to care deeply for one another. As she drove back to the construction site, Emma felt lighter and more hopeful than ever. She thought about all the other ways they could continue to help animals and people in need, inspired by the success of this rescue. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the city lights began to twinkle, reflecting the bright future she envisioned. Back at the site, the workers noticed a new sense of camaraderie and purpose among themselves. They talked more openly, supported each other better, and worked with renewed energy. The story of the homeless dog had become a cherished memory, reminding them of the good they could do when they worked together with compassion and kindness. One day, as Emma walked through the site, she saw a poster they had put up, a picture of the dog with a heartfelt message about helping animals in need. It served as a constant reminder of their mission and the positive change they had brought about. The workers took pride in their actions, knowing they had made a real difference in the world. Emma felt a strong bond with her team, grateful for their willingness to help and their open hearts. She knew that their actions had not only saved a dog but had also strengthened their community and made their workplace a better place for everyone. The experience had taught them all the value of empathy and the importance of looking out for one another. As the months passed, the story of the dog continued to inspire new projects and initiatives. They started organizing volunteer days, visiting shelters, and helping other animals find homes. The spirit of kindness that had started with one lonely dog had grown into a movement, touching the lives of many and creating a ripple effect of goodness throughout the city. Emma often thought back to that first day when the dog had wandered into the construction site, searching for help. She remembered the fear and uncertainty in its eyes and felt proud of how far they had come. The journey had not always been easy, but the rewards were immeasurable, filled with love, friendship, and the joy of knowing they had done something truly meaningful. One evening, as Emma sat by her window, she watched the stars twinkle in the night sky. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that their actions had created lasting change. The dog had found a home, the workers had found a stronger bond, and the community had found a beacon of hope. It was a beautiful ending to a heartfelt story, one that would be remembered for years to come. In the end, Emma realized that helping others, whether animals or people, was one of the most important things they could do. It brought happiness, built connections, and made the world a better place. She vowed to continue spreading kindness and compassion, inspired by the brave little dog that had brought them all together. As she turned off the lights and prepared for bed, Emma felt grateful for the journey they had shared. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they could face them together, with hearts full of love and hands ready to help. The story of the homeless dog had taught them all a valuable lesson, that even the smallest act of kindness can change lives forever. With a smile on her face, Emma drifted off to sleep, dreaming of a future filled with more stories of hope, love, and the incredible things that happen when people come together to help those in need. She knew that this was just the beginning, and that many more hearts would be touched by the power of compassion and the simple desire to make the world a kinder place for everyone. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the construction site buzzed with activity. Workers shouted instructions, machines roared, and the sound of hammers echoed through the air. Amid all the noise and busy work, the tired dog wandered further into the site. Its paws were sore, and it moved slowly, struggling to keep up with the fast pace around it. The dog had been walking all morning, looking for food and a safe place to rest. It had no collar, no name, and no one to take care of it. Every time a worker glanced its way, the dog hoped for a kind word or a gentle touch, but most of the time, people were too busy to notice. The dog's eyes were full of sadness, and its tail wagged weakly, showing how much it longed for help. By noon, the heat was intense, and the dog was clearly exhausted. It tried to find shade under some scaffolding, but even there, it couldn't rest. Its breaths came in short, heavy pants, and it looked even more worn out than before. Some workers saw the dog and gave it a quick glance, but then returned to their tasks, thinking it would go away soon. As the day went on, the dog's condition got worse. Its fur was matted, and its side hurt from where it had twisted its paw. It stumbled and fell, unable to get up. The dog lay on the ground, whimpering softly, its eyes searching the crowd for someone to help. The once bustling site seemed to slow down a little as more workers noticed the dog's struggle. Emma, one of the workers, was taking a break near the lunch area. She had a kind heart and always looked out for others. When she saw the dog lying there, she felt a pang of sadness. She walked over slowly, kneeling beside the tired animal. The dog looked up at her with pleading eyes, and Emma could see the pain and fear in its gaze. Without hesitation, Emma gently stroked the dog's head, whispering soothing words. "Hey there, little one. It's okay. We're going to help you." The dog let out a small sigh, its body relaxing slightly at her touch. Emma reached into her pocket and found a piece of her sandwich. She broke it into small pieces and offered it to the dog, who eagerly accepted the food. Seeing Emma's kindness, a few other workers began to gather around. They watched as Emma carefully lifted the dog, supporting its weight. One of the workers, Jake, brought a bottle of water and poured some into the dog's mouth. Another worker, Maria, fetched a first aid kit from the site office. Together, they started to clean the dog's wounds, working gently to avoid causing more pain. As they tended to the dog, the other workers began to realize how much it meant to someone. Some felt guilty for not helping sooner, while others felt inspired by Emma's compassion. Slowly, the atmosphere on the site began to change. Workers who were once too busy to care started to take a moment to show kindness, offering words of encouragement and gentle pats on the dog's back. Emma looked around at her co-workers, who were now gathered together, united by their desire to help the lonely animal. "We can't just leave it here," she said softly. "It needs us." Her words touched everyone's hearts, and they agreed to do whatever they could to save the dog. With the dog now more comfortable, Emma and the team decided to take it to the nearby veterinary clinic. They carefully placed the dog into a makeshift carrier they had brought from home. As they walked away from the construction site, the workers followed, some with tears in their eyes, moved by the rescue mission they had become a part of. The dog looked back one last time, its eyes meeting those of the workers. It seemed to understand that it was finally being saved from its lonely and painful journey. The sight of the dog being carried away brought a mix of emotions to everyone present: relief, happiness, and a deep sense of connection. As Emma led the way to the clinic, the workers walked together, sharing stories and smiles. They had started the day as strangers, focused only on their individual tasks, but now they were united by a common purpose. The construction site, once a place of noise and chaos, had become a place of compassion and community. The journey to help the dog had brought out the best in everyone. They had learned that even in the busiest and toughest places, there was always room for kindness. The dog's struggle had touched their hearts, reminding them of the importance of looking out for those in need, whether human or animal. By the time they reached the veterinary clinic, the bond among the workers was stronger than ever. They knew that this experience had changed them, bringing them closer together and showing them the true meaning of teamwork and empathy. As they handed the dog over to the vet, they felt a sense of accomplishment and joy, knowing they had made a difference in the life of a helpless animal. The day that had started with a lonely, struggling dog ended with a heartfelt rescue, leaving everyone with tears of joy and a renewed sense of community. The workers walked away with a story they would remember forever, a story of how a single act of kindness could transform their lives and the life of a deserving dog.